Have y'all been? Did y'all have a happy and safe holiday season? Well, my outside lights are still on because it's still the holiday season. So I turn on my soft white holiday lights in the evening from about 5 o'clock till I remember to turn them off again at night. No specific time. Y'all, I have been watching court TV and their latest court case of the Ponzi scheme unalive trial, West Virginia versus Natalie Cochran. Natalie is a former pharmacist from, you guessed it, West Virginia. In this case, the former pharmacist was running a Ponzi scheme by bilking her family and friends out of millions of dollars. She told them she had a business selling guns to the Defense Department of the federal government. Now, that right there would have made me get suspicious. Private citizens selling guns to the Defense Department? I don't think so. What and so the folks were so greedy that they handed over their money to her. Well, Natalie, the former pharmacist, excuse me, excuse me, Natalie, the former pharmacist, is currently serving time for the Ponzi scheme, but her husband, Michael, may or may not have known that this was a scheme. And so, even though she is currently serving time in the federal prison system for the scheme, the husband, who is now unalive and became that way under suspicious circumstances, now Natalie is on trial for his demise. Here's a recap. At the time of Michael's demise, supposedly Natalie running this successful Ponzi scheme, and I say successful, quote unquote, Ponzi scheme, and the state of West Virginia says husband Michael did not know the family business was a fraud. But he was about to find this out because they were going on a scheduled trip to Bank of America so Michael could find out about this money that was missing from their account because apparently the federal government was not coming through. This trip was planned on the very same day that Michael had his medical event. Here are some things that came out of the trial yesterday. First, this is how Natalie got the insulin that unalived Michael into the home. The family had a good friend whose son was using insulin at the time. Natalie requested the mother of this child bring over a vial of insulin. And the reason she needed this, she told the mother, was because it helped her cancer. Now, did Natalie even have cancer for real? It was never really confirmed. And why didn't her doctor prescribe insulin for her if it was necessary? Insulin is you can only get insulin by prescription. It's not something you can buy over the counter. Nevertheless, the neighbor sends over the insulin. So that's how they get the insulin into the house. Michael was not diabetic, nor was there a report of anyone else in their home being diabetic. Michael actually was unalive due to insulin poisoning. Now, the prosecutor's position is that Natalie injected her husband Michael with the insulin, either to unalive him or make him sick or anything in order to keep him from going to Bank of America and finding out about the family's Ponzi scheme. Because remember, they were going to Bank of America that very same day to find out why they did not have this money in their account. Natalie knew, but it seems that Michael didn't know, even though, according to friends, he was enjoying spending the money and was even instrumental in some aspects of the business. But according to the prosecutor's position, he still may not have known that the business was fraudulent. It seems that he could have been under that same belief as his family and friends in terms of where the money was coming from or was supposed to be coming from. Well, anyway, after being injected with the insulin, Michael faints on the kitchen floor. And instead of calling 911, Natalie has two men that happen to be working at her home at the time. Natalie have those men come in and carry the unconscious Michael to a sofa in the home. According to the prosecutor, Natalie's intent was to let him sleep off this faint. Okay, he's fainted. He's not drunk, but okay. At some point, Michael, who is still unconscious, loses control of his faculties and urinates on himself. This must be on the sofa. And Natalie has her sister help her to clean the urine up from her unconscious husband. So even though he's being cleaned up, remember, he's still unconscious and does not wake up, but she's letting him sleep this off. The sister doesn't even think to call 911. I find this all very strange. Then Natalie has a stream of friends come in and they all look at the unconscious Michael. And one person on the stand even says they were whispering, standing around looking at this unconscious man on the sofa, whispering about him and listening to Natalie as she says she's letting him sleep it off. Why none of these people who considered Michael a friend, no one said, the heck with this, I'm calling 911. I'm not going to be a part of this mess. He can be mad at me later. Nope, no one said that. So this unconscious and not responding man continued to lay on the couch. And Natalie's response is that he doesn't want to go to the hospital because he doesn't like hospitals. And so she's letting him sleep it off. Well, Michael is unconscious. He can't speak for himself. So you know what? And how he feels about doctors and hospitals, or hospitals anyway, all bets are off. Call 911. But these folks don't do the right thing, not yet. Of all the people or friends, and I use the term friends loosely because all these people that came over and looked at Michael, one was a PA. One of these friends was a PA, a physician's assistant, someone who had taken an oath, not the Hippocratic oath of doctors, but a PA's professional pledge, which is to put the health, safety, and privacy of the patient first. Clearly, that was not being adhered to here. But not even the PA insists that 911 be called or call them herself. No one overrode Natalie's decision as if she had some type of hold on them. And the PA's testimony was also a little suspect because at one point, when she was on the stand, the defense attorney asked her about urine retention of urine being a serious concern. And the PA actually said, and I heard her say this, she actually said urine retention was more of an inconvenience than anything. And I thought, really? You don't think that's an indication of a kidney issue? But to the credit of the defense attorney, he said, really? With those toxins in the body, an inconvenience? And then the PA corrected herself and said, yes, urine retention could be serious. You think? All I could say was, mm, mm, mm. What's going on in West Virginia? Well, I'm thinking that all of these friends, well heeled people, should have some type of charges levied against them for not calling 911 to get help for this unconscious man, um, who they all referred to as a friend. And at that point, they did not even know they were being ripped off because these friends had also participated in giving money over to Natalie in this scheme. The defense attorney, though, Matthew Victor, has a real combative style and irritates the witnesses. So all these witnesses that I'm speaking of right now were friends of Michael and Natalie's. So sometimes Mr. Victor amused me, but for real, sometimes when he asked a question, he just wanted a yes or no answer. But all of these people wanted to explain things. They all feel they have a need to explain things. I got you. They probably do. So that was my take on verdict, yesterday's court case with the Ponzi scheme in West Virginia. Now, the other case that just reached a verdict yesterday, this is the forgetful grandmother's manslaughter case. This Florida grandmother was asked to keep her 7-month-old granddaughter, and she agreed. It seems the child's mother, her daughter, had a hair appointment and asked her mother to watch the 7-month-old baby Yuri. And the plan was that her husband, the child's father, would pick up the child later at the end of his workday. Now, that doesn't sound like anything out of the ordinary. Grandmothers are watching their grandchildren every day of the week. It's a normal and natural thing. So the grandmother agreed to watch the baby. And after her Bible study or prayer meeting that morning, the grandmother and one of her friends went to pick the baby up from the mother's workplace, which was also the baby's parents' own business. The grandmother and her friend went on to meet other friends for a planned luncheon that morning or that afternoon, taking the baby with them. The same friend testified that the grandmother was very attentive to the baby during the luncheon. After the luncheon with her friends, the grandmother drove home, got out of the car, fed and played with the dog, played the piano. I believe they said she looked for her husband, and I take it he was somewhere on their property. Now, I don't know what order she did these things, but all this time, little baby Yuri is in the hot car on a hot day in Florida. She left the baby in the car. Well, the baby was in the car for more than 2 hours, and the child became unalive from a heat stroke in the car. My Lord. Now, this is something that should have never happened in any case, but in particularly with this child, with this grandmother, and with this daughter, because number one, another child became unalive while in the same grandmother's care. In fact, it was the older brother to this same baby girl. It happened a little less than a year ago from the time of this little baby's demise. That first time, the grandmother was asleep, and the little toddler boy became unalive by drowning in a neighbor's pond. Something is very wrong here. Here's where I have a major problem with the grandmother and the parents of these children. Why would you put another of your children at risk by asking the same grandmother, even though it's your own mother, why would you ask her to watch another child who is not able to fend for themselves? I'm not victim blaming and I'm not victim shaming because really it's the baby girl Yuri who is the real victim here. She paid the ultimate price, not the mother, not the father, not the grandmother. Now, this is probably going to be hard to hear, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because there are some serious lapses in judgment here with the parent and the grandmother. So I'm glad this lady will not be around because these parents have another well, no, you know what? I'm not going to say it. I'm going to leave that alone because this is too sad for the baby, the parents, and the grandmother. In fact, the whole family. This is a very sad situation. As for this grandmother, knowing that she lost a grandchild previously in her care, you would think she'd be hyper vigilant when it comes to watching any other grandchild. And I don't know if this is her version of hypervigilance or if there's something else going on, but who in their right mind would entrust any defenseless child to her care again after the first time something happened like this, especially the parents of the child that something happened like this? It I can't imagine these parents would take any other chances with this grandmother watching any other child that they had, but they did. And that's very sad. So now they're on television trying to get some type of justice, even for the first child. But I think well, maybe they bear some responsibility and they should look at themselves as well. All right. I've made enough enemies for one day. Wasn't my intent, though. Thank you all for listening. Tune in again. And remember to seek peace and pursue it. So says Psalms 34:14. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye bye.